Karoline Leavitt walked onto the Fox News set with a confidence that belied her youth. As the spokesperson for President Donald Trump, expectations were high, and the topic, Trump's new import tariff policy, was a powder keg. Yet Karoline remained composed, dressed in navy blue with her notes neatly organized, waiting for the moment to speak. When the anchor asked her to justify the seemingly aggressive tariff stance, Karoline didn't stutter. She launched into a clear, data-driven explanation, connecting the dots between American job growth, Chinese manufacturing tactics, and long-term economic sovereignty. The hosts looked surprised, not at her defense, but at the unexpected clarity and class with which she delivered it. The real surprise came when Mccharthy, known for being sharply critical of Trump's team, leaned forward during the live segment and said, "Miss Leavitt, that was the most cogent defense I've heard on this network in years." The room fell silent. A moment later, Twitter exploded with praise. No one expected Trump's spokesperson to become the show's breakout star. Mccharthy couldn't get Karoline's answers out of his head. He had expected another combative mouthpiece, but instead found himself captivated by someone who used grace and facts rather than volume. That night, instead of reviewing his regular notes, he found himself Googling Karoline Leavitt. What he discovered shocked him. Karoline had graduated magna cum laude, interned for a bipartisan policy institute before joining Trump's team, and even led a student-run civility campaign during college debates. Her past painted a picture not of a partisan firebrand, but a nuanced thinker who chose loyalty out of principle, not popularity. The next morning, Andy admitted to his wife over breakfast, "I think I might have underestimated that young woman." His wife replied with a grin, "Well, you said the same thing when you first saw me on that university panel 20 years ago." Andy chuckled, but the thought stuck. Maybe Karoline Leavitt was about to rewrite more than just political narratives. Karoline's poised performance created an unexpected ripple. Online forums, usually a battlefield of insults, turned into a hub of respect. Even liberal commentators begrudgingly acknowledged her as refreshingly articulate. Her follower count on social media doubled overnight, but it was the quality of followers. Academics, small business owners, and even college debaters that caught attention. A surprise email landed in her inbox from an Ivy League professor. "I disagree with your politics, but your articulation is a masterclass. Would you speak to my class via Zoom?" Karoline accepted. That one guest lecture went viral among students, and suddenly universities were lining up for her insights. What stunned everyone most was that Karoline never bragged about it. She declined interviews where the topic veered too far into her own fame. "It's not about me," she'd say. But those closest to her knew, Karoline's discipline was as rare as her communication skill, and that combination was becoming magnetic. Back at Fox News headquarters, Andy gathered with fellow commentators over coffee. "Did you catch her yesterday?" one of them asked. Everyone nodded. "She's not just a mouthpiece," another chimed in. "She's playing chess while we're still learning checkers." Andy remained quiet, letting the buzz affirm what he already suspected. The conversation turned when a younger producer mentioned she tried to book Karoline again but was told the White House had to approve it now. Apparently, even they were caught off guard by her popularity. "I heard she wrote that entire speech herself," someone whispered. Andy raised an eyebrow. That wasn't typical of political spokespersons, who usually read pre-cleared statements. A junior anchor, clearly smitten, laughed nervously. "She smiled at me when she walked past. I forgot my name for 3 seconds." Laughter erupted, but beneath it, a realization hung in the air. Karoline Leavitt wasn't just another pretty face on TV. She was becoming a phenomenon, and everyone wanted to know what she'd do next. Fox News wasted no time. They sent Karoline a formal invite for a return appearance, this time for an extended debate segment alongside seasoned political veterans. Unexpectedly, Andy requested to be part of the panel himself. "I want to challenge her, and maybe learn something," he told the producer. When Karoline arrived at the studio, she looked even more composed than before. But the surprise wasn't her calmness, it was who walked into the green room minutes before airtime. Andy Mccharthy, holding a printed copy of her op-ed in the National Review that had quietly gone viral. "I came prepared," he said, handing it to her with a smirk. During the segment, Karoline didn't just hold her ground. She elevated the conversation. She thanked her critics for thoughtful points and used humor to diffuse tension. At one point, Andy paused and said on air, "We need more Karolines in politics." That quote would be replayed in highlight reels for weeks. No one had seen that coming. Not even Karoline. 2 days after her second Fox News appearance, Karoline's phone buzzed with a call from the West Wing. It was Dan Scavino, a top Trump advisor. "The president saw the segment," he said flatly. Karoline froze. "He wants you to brief him personally tomorrow morning before the Michigan rally." It wasn't a request. It was an order. Karoline spent all night preparing. She read every recent trade memo, watched reruns of previous press briefings, and even called her college professor at midnight for quick feedback on economic rhetoric. When she entered the Oval Office the next morning, Trump looked up and smiled. "Heard you made McCarthy speechless," he chuckled. "Good. Now let's keep the heat on." What shocked her most was what came next. Trump leaned in and said, "Karoline, I want you to write the first 2 minutes of my Michigan speech. In your words. Give it your tone." For a young spokesperson, this wasn't just an honor. It was a monumental shift in trust. She walked out of the room trying to look composed, but inside, her heart was doing backflips. Trump's rally in Michigan started like many others. Crowd roaring, music blaring. But when he began his speech, the shift in tone was palpable. Gone were the heavy-handed slogans. Instead, he spoke with clarity and emotional resonance, talking about the dignity of American labor and protecting our children's future, not China's fortune. Reporters in the press pit looked at each other in confusion. "Did he really say that?" one whispered. Andy McCarthy, watching from New York, sat up straighter. "That's Leavitt's influence," he muttered. Social media began dissecting the first 2 minutes. And sure enough, an anonymous staffer leaked. That part? Written by Karoline Leavitt. The next morning, her name was trending on political Twitter, again. What she didn't expect was a handwritten note waiting on her desk when she got back to D.C. "Your words hit harder than applause. DJT." It was signed with a Sharpie. Karoline realized then, she wasn't just a voice for the president anymore. She was becoming part of his voice. Success breeds envy. While Karoline's name soared through headlines and late-night commentary, not everyone in Trump's inner circle was thrilled. A few senior advisors began to whisper in corridors. "She's too young," one said. "She'll eclipse all of us," another grumbled. Plans started brewing, not to destroy her, but to quietly sideline her. A week later, Karoline was unexpectedly removed from 2 upcoming press briefings. When she inquired, the reply was vague, scheduling conflict. But she wasn't naive. Something was happening. Luckily, one of her close friends inside the comms team forwarded her a confidential calendar showing she'd been replaced without explanation. Twice. Instead of confronting it head-on, Karoline did something unexpected. She called Andy McCarthy and asked for coffee. "I think I need an outside perspective," she said. The meeting was casual, but halfway through, Andy surprised her by saying, "Then let me be your outside voice. I'll write a piece tomorrow, neutral tone, but clear on the facts." She blinked. "You'd do that?" He smirked. "I didn't come this far just to let bureaucrats ruin real talent." The op-ed dropped the next day. The most effective Trump communicator isn't who you think. It wasn't a puff piece, but it outlined Karoline's clarity, calm under pressure, and growing influence with surprising fairness. The article quickly gained traction, and ironically, her enemies inside the White House had made her more visible than ever. Scavino called her late that night, laughing. "Well, you've officially survived your first takedown attempt." But Karoline was more cautious now. She began quietly building her own network, trusted policy analysts, young aides, and even 2 former staffers from past administrations who admired her integrity. What no one knew was that Karoline had also started journaling her experiences. A trusted friend suggested, "You should write a memoir someday." She laughed it off, but kept writing. Deep down, she had a feeling. This was only the beginning of something much bigger. And maybe, just maybe, the world would want to read her side of it. Fox News invited Karoline for a town hall special. Live questions from real voters. She accepted, thinking it would be another day of policy talk. But the network had a surprise in store. One of the audience members was none other than her estranged college debate rival, Marcus Hill, now a progressive media contributor known for viral takedowns. The moment Marcus stood up and addressed her, the studio held its breath. "Karoline," he began, "we've disagreed for years. But today, I came with a different question. How did you manage to stay kind? Most people on that podium end up bitter." Karoline blinked. She hadn't expected that. Her answer was calm but heartfelt. "I don't fight people. I fight for principles. If we lose decency, we lose everything." The room erupted in applause. "And Marcus?" He clapped too. After the show, they shook hands for the first time in years. The cameras caught it, and by the next morning, the image had become a symbol across the internet. Civility isn't dead. The morning after the televised handshake with Marcus Hill, Karoline received a short, cryptic email from an unfamiliar address. "Impressive composure last night. Come see me." It was signed only with the letter K. Puzzled, she followed the instructions which led her to a private office inside the Reagan Presidential Foundation in D.C. Waiting inside was Kellyanne Conway, Trump's former counselor and one of the sharpest political minds of the last decade. "You've got the tools," Kellyanne said without preamble. "But you need sharper instincts and fewer friends." What followed was an intense, 3-hour strategy session. Kellyanne didn't pull punches. She offered insights, warnings, and even walked Karoline through her old campaign war rooms. Before Karoline left, Kellyanne handed her a worn black journal. This belonged to a speechwriter in the Bush administration. "I've kept it as a reminder that what we say shapes nations." Karoline opened it and found blank pages. "Now it's yours," Kellyanne smiled. "Fill it with what you believe." Karoline left with goosebumps and a brand new fire in her chest. With her profile rising, Karoline started attending more high-level meetings. But behind closed doors, a growing group of Republican strategists questioned her loyalty. "She's too polished, too media-friendly," one muttered. "She might be auditioning for her own future, not Trump's." Karoline heard whispers but stayed focused. Then came a strange invitation, an exclusive GOP donor dinner in New Hampshire. It wasn't on her official calendar, yet her name was on the guest list. Upon arrival, she realized the event was filled with several anti-Trump conservatives, and the guest of honor was Nikki Haley. Someone was trying to bait her into a headline. Karoline didn't fall for it. She smiled politely, spoke generically, and left early. But her escape didn't go unnoticed. The next day, a leaked photo showed her seated at a table with Haley and Mitt Romney. Headlines exploded. Is Karoline Leavitt the next face of post-Trump conservatism? The White House was furious. But Karoline knew what they didn't. The leak didn't come from the media. It came from inside her own team. Facing pressure from all sides, Karoline decided to confront the situation directly. She called for a rare internal press conference at Mar-a-Lago, inviting only conservative outlets and Trump's top advisors. The room buzzed with tension. "Some of you think I'm building my brand," she began. "But I'm building a message that wins." Then she did something no one expected. She publicly named the strategist who leaked the dinner photo, Brady Lenz, a mid-tier advisor with ambitions to control the narrative. "Transparency starts with accountability," she said, locking eyes with him in front of everyone. The room fell dead silent. Instead of anger, Trump called her that evening and laughed. "You've got bigger B*** than half my cabinet." It wasn't presidential, but it was praise. More importantly, the leak attempts stopped. And Brady Lenz? Reassigned to logistics in Iowa. A polite exile. Karoline's honesty made her popular among the public, but dangerous among the elite. One night, she returned to her apartment and found an unmarked manila envelope on her doorstep. Inside was a printed message. "You think you're untouchable. You're not. Stay in your lane." There was no signature, only a red ink stamp of a chess pawn. She reported it quietly to Secret Service, but they couldn't trace it. "Might just be a scare tactic," they told her. Still, it rattled her. She started using a driver, installed cameras in her apartment, and limited public appearances. But the fear slowly began to shift into resolve. The twist came 2 days later. Marcus Hill, the liberal rival she had reunited with, texted her, "I got a letter too. Same pawn stamp." They realized, unbelievably, someone was targeting both of them. "This isn't about party lines anymore," Marcus said. "This is someone who fears your voices together." Karoline replied simply, Then maybe we should start using them louder. Karoline and Marcus decided to collaborate in the most unexpected way. A surprise joint podcast, live-streamed without any prior announcement. Titled The Common Ground, they tackled trade policy, ethics and politics, and even the meaning of patriotism. The podcast went viral overnight. Millions tuned in, not just because of what was said, but who was saying it together. What neither of them expected was the massive amount of support from young voters. Suddenly, college campuses across the country were quoting Karoline's lines and remixing Marcus's reactions into TikToks. Fox News and CNN both tried to spin it, but couldn't deny its popularity. "This isn't a party shift," one analyst said. "It's a tone shift." The final surprise came when Karoline got a call from Trump himself. "Heard your little show," he said. "You've got the left and right listening? Good. But don't forget, you're still mine." She smiled at the phone. "Always, sir. But let's give them something they've never seen before." And with that, Karoline stepped into a new chapter of influence. One built not just on loyalty, but leadership. Karoline's viral podcast success didn't sit well with several senior White House aides. They accused her of freelancing and undermining the administration's messaging. During a morning briefing, one advisor flatly said, "You're acting like a star, not a soldier." Karoline fired back, "Stars lead. Soldiers follow. I'm doing both." The room fell silent. Later that day, she was summoned to Trump's private office. Expecting a reprimand, she instead found Trump chuckling while watching a clip from The Common Ground. "They love it," he said. "Even my barber was talking about it." He gave her the green light to continue, but with a caveat. She'd have to appear on the show with Trump himself. That was the bombshell. Karoline would moderate a live podcast episode featuring Trump and Marcus Hill side by side. "This'll blow everything up," she told Marcus. "Yeah," he replied. "Either we change America, or end both our careers." The episode aired on a Friday night with tens of millions watching live across platforms. Trump and Marcus traded jabs, but Karoline expertly mediated the discussion. Her calm tone, pointed questions, and refusal to let either man dominate earned her praise across the political spectrum. The real shock came at the end. Trump, breaking from script, admitted, "You know what? I don't agree with Marcus. But I respect him more than half the snakes in Washington." The internet exploded. Memes flooded Twitter. Overnight, Karoline 2028 trended globally, even as she herself stayed silent. Privately, Karoline received a message from Michelle Obama. A simple email that read, "Respect. Let me know if you ever want to talk real leadership." It stunned her. "This isn't just about Trump anymore," Karoline whispered to herself. "I've entered something way bigger." The morning after the debate episode, Karoline noticed a strange shift in her team. Her trusted assistant, Julia, was suddenly distant. Rumors swirled that internal memos were being leaked to Politico. Karoline confronted Julia directly, and was met with tears. "They threatened my brother," Julia confessed. "They said they'd destroy him if I didn't cooperate." Karoline's jaw dropped. She hugged Julia, forgave her, and took swift action, bringing in a cybersecurity expert to trace the breaches. What they found shocked everyone. The leak led back to a retired senator turned lobbyist, secretly working to discredit rising Republican stars and keep the old guard in control. Rather than go public, Karoline made a bold move. She called the lobbyist directly. "I know what you've done," she said. "You've messed with the wrong girl." She offered him a deal, leave politics for good, or she'd release everything. He agreed, but Karoline knew the war had only just begun. 2 weeks later, Karoline received an unexpected visit at her Georgetown apartment from an emissary of the DNC. The man was quiet, well-dressed, and held an envelope. "You have bipartisan appeal," he said flatly. "What if we helped fund your own political platform? No party strings attached." Inside the envelope, a draft proposal for a new, independent unity movement, with her name at the top. Karoline laughed. "Is this real?" The man nodded. "America's shifting. You're the face of that shift, whether you want to be or not." She didn't say yes, but she didn't throw the envelope away either. That night, she stayed up late, reading every word. She imagined a future without party limitations. A movement led by values, not labels. The next day, Karoline made a calculated decision. She would not accept the offer, yet. Instead, she leaked it anonymously to The Atlantic. The headline read, "Democrats eye Trump spokeswoman as potential centrist star." The political world went into meltdown. And Karoline? She watched it unfold with a glass of wine and a knowing smirk. At a speaking engagement in Detroit, just as Karoline finished a panel about youth empowerment, a loud pop echoed through the auditorium. Chaos erupted. Secret Service tackled her to the ground. Shouts filled the air. Someone had fired a shot from inside the venue. One bullet hit a nearby wall, inches from where she stood. The shooter, caught within minutes, was a 23-year-old extremist claiming Karoline was ruining true conservatism. She was rushed to safety, shaken but unharmed. The footage aired on every major outlet. People wept. Politicians called. Even Biden issued a heartfelt statement. Karoline's composure in the aftermath became iconic. But the real twist? While reviewing surveillance footage, agents found the shooter had entered using credentials registered to a far-right super PAC, the same one that had once supported her early media training. "This isn't fringe," she whispered. "This is the system turning on itself." And for the first time, Karoline realized she might not just be fighting for Trump. She might be fighting to save democracy itself. Just days after the assassination attempt, Karoline was contacted directly by Elon Musk. The message was short. "Dinner. No press. Bring your ideas." Curiosity piqued, she agreed, meeting him at a discreet location in Austin. Over Wagyu steak and zero cameras, Musk leaned forward and said, "I don't trust most politicians. But I trust disruptors. You're one." He offered to back a media tech platform with Karoline at the center. A hybrid of policy, media, and social reform, he called it. Something that moves faster than DC ever could. Karoline was stunned. The catch? It would be completely independent of Trump, and she'd need to step out of his shadow. That night, she walked alone outside her hotel, staring at the sky. Could she really go from Trump's voice to her own? The surprise twist? Before she went to bed, she texted Elon, "I'll design the blueprint. You provide the engine." It was the beginning of something neither of them could fully predict. When word of Karoline's dinner with Elon leaked, the media exploded. Headlines speculated about a Trump betrayal, a conservative split, or even a Musk-Leavitt ticket 2028. Karoline flew to Mar-a-Lago, bracing herself for confrontation. Trump didn't yell. He didn't fire her. He just stared at her for a long moment. "You're doing what I trained you to do," he finally said. "But remember who gave you the damn megaphone." It wasn't anger, it was pride, mixed with fear of being eclipsed. But then he added something shocking. "If you run someday, I won't stop you. Just don't forget where you learned to fight." Karoline left the meeting stunned. Trump had unofficially blessed her future. And the twist? As she got into her car, she noticed a new text from Elon. "The domain Karoline2028.com is now yours. Just in case." Amid her growing fame, Karoline received a call from Marcus Hill, the progressive host she once debated beside Trump. "I've been thinking," he said. "America doesn't need left or right now. It needs rational warriors. Want to do a speaking tour together?" She paused. The idea was risky, wild, potentially career-ending, or career-defining. They launched a surprise event in Philadelphia titled Unlikely Voices, Shared Country. Tickets sold out in minutes. At the event, they tackled issues like trade, criminal justice, and education reform, disagreeing with respect, and finding surprising overlap. The internet dubbed them the political odd couple. But after the event, as they rode together in an SUV, Marcus leaned over and said, "Ever think about running with someone like me?" Karoline laughed, then froze. He wasn't joking. The twist? The next day, a grassroots site popped up, Leavitt Hill 2028? And it wasn't made by either of them. Karoline's trusted assistant, Julia, the one who once betrayed her under pressure, had been by her side ever since. But one night, Karoline saw Julia crying outside a studio shoot. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I haven't been honest about who I really am." Confused, Karoline sat down beside her. Julia revealed she was the daughter of a former DNC strategist, placed close to Karoline years ago on orders to monitor rising threats. But over time, she'd changed. "You made me believe in something." "In you," Julia said. Karoline was stunned, angry, betrayed. But mostly, she didn't know how to feel. The twist: instead of firing her, Karoline hugged her. "If I'm going to lead," she said, "I need people who've seen both sides." From that moment on, Julia became more than an assistant. She became the keeper of Karoline's secrets, and perhaps the most loyal ally she never expected. One morning, Karoline found an envelope slipped under her office door. It had no return address, only elegant handwriting. Inside was a handwritten letter from Ivanka Trump. It read, "You're walking a path I once dreamed of, but never dared to finish. Don't let the walls close in. Burn the map if you have to." The letter included a key, no explanation. Days later, Karoline discovered what it unlocked: a private locker in a DC facility filled with documents, strategies, and recordings. Ivanka's own blueprint for breaking from the political machine. "She tried," Karoline whispered, "but something stopped her." The twist: Karoline realized Ivanka had laid the groundwork not for her own rise, but perhaps for Karoline's. And now, with the truth in her hands, Karoline whispered something she never thought she would: "I might not need Trump anymore. I might be ready to become more than his voice. I might be ready to become the storm." Karoline was invited to appear on 60 Minutes for what was marketed as a deep-dive interview on rising voices in American politics. She accepted cautiously, suspecting some level of ambush, but she didn't expect what came next. The interviewer immediately turned combative, twisting her words and flashing private texts leaked anonymously, ones even Karoline had forgotten she sent. Instead of panicking, Karoline smiled. She had come prepared. "You want to frame me like I'm a puppet," she said. "But let me introduce you to the puppeteer who trained me. He's watching, by the way." The crowd fell silent. Karoline then pulled out her phone and played a voicemail from Donald Trump himself, praising her independence. "You don't need me anymore, Karoline. Run. If you don't, someone else will." The surprise? The 60 Minutes episode aired with heavy edits, but Karoline had secretly recorded the entire uncut version on her own device and released it online before the network premiere. It went viral in under an hour. The tables had turned. She wasn't just a voice anymore. She was a player. Elon Musk invited Karoline and a few other key thinkers to a closed-door summit in Montana. The topic? An independent political framework called Iron Vow that would challenge both parties. Musk laid it out plainly: "We build a movement based on transparency, innovation, and radical independence. No PACs, no lobbyists, just people who want to flip the board." Karoline was intrigued. But the real shock came when former Democrat Tulsi Gabbard walked into the room, smiling, coffee in hand. "We're on the same page," Tulsi said. "Let's blow up the system, with grace." The plan was wild: a digital-first political machine built to outsmart and outpace the traditional GOP and DNC machinery. The twist: that night, Karoline received an encrypted file on her private laptop. It contained a full skeleton blueprint of a Leavitt-Gabbard 2028 run, with data models, fundraising targets, and even ad campaigns. She looked at Elon, who simply nodded. "Your move, Karoline." Not everyone was thrilled with Karoline's meteoric rise. Inside the Trump orbit, a quiet coup was forming. Steve Bannon called her a traitor in a podcast. Lara Trump blocked her on social media. Even MAGA influencers began questioning if she had gone too rogue. The whispers turned into threats: "Stay in your lane or be run off the road." Karoline held a press conference the next day, unfiltered, unscripted. "This isn't about loyalty to a man," she declared. "It's about loyalty to a movement. And if some of you forgot that, maybe you're the ones who left us." The statement went viral, reigniting debate across conservative America. The surprise? In the crowd that day stood Eric Trump, disguised under a cap and hoodie. After the conference, he approached her privately. "You're not the enemy," he said quietly. "You're the evolution. And that scares the hell out of them." He handed her a USB drive. "Use this when the time's right." The USB from Eric Trump contained encrypted internal documents, polling data, strategy memos, and off-the-record endorsements. showing that Karoline now had more public trust than most current GOP leaders. More shockingly, the data revealed over 12 swing states were leaning toward a hypothetical Leavitt candidacy, even against both Biden and Trump. The numbers were undeniable. But going public meant war, not just with opponents, but with the entire establishment. Elon called. Tulsi texted. Even Musk's AI team offered to help simulate the messaging impact in real time. Karoline stood at the edge of the cliff and decided to jump. She announced a national listening tour across America. Not a campaign, she said, yet. But she'd speak, listen, and let the people decide. The twist. In her first city, Cleveland, a hologram of Donald Trump appeared on stage mid-speech, pre-recorded, saying, "You're watching the future." And her name is Karoline Leavitt. One night, as Karoline prepped for a town hall in Minneapolis, her phone buzzed with an anonymous encrypted message. The sender claimed to be a whistleblower hacker from Berlin, working to expose corruption in Western politics. "You're being followed," the message read. "Not just by the government, by something older." Attached was footage of private meetings in D.C., where both Republican and Democrat elites discussed containment strategies for Karoline, including potential blackmail and even foreign sabotage. The videos were grainy, but unmistakably real. Karoline's blood ran cold. This was no longer politics. It was war. The twist. The hacker didn't want money. He wanted partnership. "You fight from the podium," he wrote. "I'll fight from the shadows." That night, Karoline made a new promise to herself, her team, and the world. "You came for a spokesperson, but I became a sword, and I'm not going back." Karoline arrived in Dallas expecting a quiet policy roundtable. Instead, she was escorted to a private hangar where hundreds had gathered, ex-military officials, ex-senators, rogue tech leaders, even small-town mayors. They called it the Shadow Convention. The purpose? "If they won't give us a seat at the table," said one general, "we'll build a new table." Karoline was asked to lead the final session. As she stepped up, lights dimmed, and a screen displayed footage of mass online movements forming around her name, all decentralized, from Montana to Maine. People were organizing, sharing resources, even building apps, without waiting for permission. She hadn't just become a symbol. She'd become a signal. The twist. After the speech, someone handed her an old-style envelope. Inside, an offer from a former CIA strategist to act as her security and data chief, off the books. Written at the bottom, "You're not running for office anymore. You're running a revolution." As momentum surged, Karoline scheduled a broadcast to announce her next move, whether she would run, endorse, or exit. But just hours before airtime, her encrypted laptop was breached. Private voicemails, past romantic messages, and even personal family issues began leaking across X, formerly Twitter. The hashtag Karoline collapse trended within minutes. For the first time in months, Karoline was shaken. She canceled the broadcast, went off-grid for 48 hours, and huddled with her closest advisors. The betrayal had come from inside her own digital operations team, someone she trusted, someone who'd shared pizza and strategy until 2 a.m. The mole? A rising conservative influencer, now aligned with a rival faction. But the twist? Karoline came back, on her own live stream. No makeup, no notes. "You want to shame me into silence," she said. "Good luck. I've lived truthfully. I've fought clean. If I fall, it's not because I lied. It's because I told too much truth." The live stream broke every record on the platform, and the hashtag flipped. Hashtag Karoline Rises. The stage was set in New Hampshire, her home state. What was supposed to be a modest town hall turned into a full-blown national broadcast. Supporters flooded the grounds. Drones flew overhead. A gospel choir opened. Then came Karoline, standing beneath a massive screen reading, "The future isn't waiting." She delivered a short but thunderous speech. No slogans. No attacks. Just a promise. "I will not run for president. Not now. Because I'm building something bigger than a campaign. I'm building a new order of accountability. And one day, when this machine is ready, I'll know what to do." Thunderous applause followed. The final twist? Moments after the speech, a private message from Donald Trump himself lit up her phone. It simply said, You outgrew me. I'm proud of that. Karoline smiled, tucked her phone away, and walked off stage, not as a candidate, but as a movement in motion.